The opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guests and don't necessarily reflect the views of WOWT.
Welcome to another episode of Becca's Talking, and yeah, that's it. I had to double check to make sure. Yeah, it is Becca's Talking. I forgot the name of the show for a second. Becca's Talking. The whole idea of this podcast is to have you meet people that you might not have a chance to meet in your everyday life, and today is no exception. I'm going to get to that in a second, but first, I want to talk to you about the good folks over there at Havana Garage. Havana Garage in the Old Market, proud sponsor of this podcast, has been pretty much from the beginning, and we really do appreciate it. You know, it's a great place to go and have a cigar, relax with a cocktail, have some good conversation. There's a group there that I tend to join on Thursdays when I'm available, and just a bunch of friends and get together, hang out, have a cigar, have a cocktail, and solve all the problems of the world. Yeah, it's a great place to just go and relax. And if you're going out there, maybe it's a date night, you got dinner in the Old Market, or a play down at the Orpheum, or a concert at CHI, make Havana Garage a part of your night. Okay, so like I said, this is about meeting people that you might not have a chance to meet in your everyday life. And this is, I'm looking forward to this one, because this is Dana Murray. Dana Murray is the executive director of NOMA. Which stands for what, Dana?
North Omaha Music and Arts.
North Omaha Music and Arts, which is a very cool operation that is there to basically educate kids about the arts, right?
Educate kids and just offer an artistic resource to the entire city, really. So education is obviously the backbone of what we do, but I would say that live performance is about equal to what we do as well.
Okay, you say live performance. Expand on that.
Well, we have a music venue. We have an incredible venue that would rate with any size venue in the country for an intimate jazz setting. And we put on probably 200 shows a year. Yeah, so we're pretty active in our live music agenda.
I've been out there for a few of the events. You do a jam night on Monday nights, right?
Monday night, every Monday is our jam session.
Some of the best musicians in Omaha come to play on Monday nights there at NOMA, which is located 24th and Lake at the old Love's Art Center, right?
Yep, right on the corner of 24th and Lake.
Before we get into really what all you're doing and the thing that you're accomplishing, before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about you, because you got a pretty interesting life too.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, you started off. Your biological father was Marvin Gaye's road manager?
Oh, well, you've done some background.
I know a little bit, yeah.
Impressive. Yeah, I grew up in South Omaha, and that's interesting. I don't think I've ever had anybody ask me about that part of my life.
Yeah, because that was like the first time that you got on stage, right?
Yeah, well, I didn't grow up knowing my biological father. I just happened to meet him when I was I guess I was 11 or so. And yeah, he was on the road with Marvin Gaye. I'm not sure if he was a road manager, if he was a roadie, what he was, but he and my mother talked and connected us, and I hung out with him pretty much for a whole 2 days. And that 2 days was very impactful, because I got to see the behind the scenes of what it's like to be a musician, and to watch what it's like to see a band of that stature. It was Marvin Gaye, and what they went through to put a show on the stage. And I got to meet all the musicians, and it was fascinating. And for a young kid who, at that time wasn't aspiring to be a musician, I probably wanted to be a football player or a basketball player. But it was fascinating to me. I think that's when I connected. Oh, whoa, all this stuff that I see on television or music videos or on the, listen to on the radio, like that's an actual skill set, an actual job. That's an actual, that requires proficiency on another level than I thought was there. So yeah, I connected that dot. If I wanted to work hard to do that, I felt like I had a roadmap. Yeah.
So you knew that, okay, that you fell in love with music because you were like playing little drums or something beforehand, right? You're just sort of...
At that point, I was probably still playing saxophone.
Okay.
In school, and I wasn't a very good saxophone player at all. The band director would often get mad at me for being back by the drums. So I got my first drum set when I was 3, and it was a kiddie drum set, and I tore that up. But that's definitely where the love came from for percussion. But my mother couldn't afford to get me a drum. I think it was like $30 for the school year to rent a drum because the schools didn't have drums, and we just couldn't afford that. But a friend of hers had a saxophone that I could use, so that's what I played. But it didn't take long for me to gravitate back to the drums.
You said something here that resonated with me, and I think I've told this story before, but when I was a kid growing up, I watched, the Ed Sullivan Show, and they had, along with the Beatles and all the other stuff, they had stand-up comedians, and I was fascinated with the stand-up comedians. But they were like New York Jewish people, African Americans like Bill Crosby, women like Joan Rivers.
Right.
There were no white kids from Cleveland whose dad was an insurance salesman doing stand-up comedy. So I honestly thought as a young kid, I can't do that. That's not what I do.
Right.
So when you were there on that stage, when you were there with the band for those 2 days with Marvin Gaye, that showed you that, oh yeah, you could do this. Whereas before, maybe, like you said, you thought football player or something because that's what you saw on TV for an African American man, young boy growing up. You saw that, and you have to see what is possible, I think, before these kids can achieve it, right?
You have to have somebody that connects the dots to anyone, whether it's an adult or a young person. With me, I was always fascinated with knowing how someone reached the heights that they reached, whether it was Muhammad Ali or Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Sugar Ray Leonard, anyone who had done things that required resilience, dedication, commitment. And you find out early on that, the common thread between all those, the common denominator, is not only hard work and dedication, but it's resolve and resilience. Like the stuff that they all overcame to reach a goal would have derailed most people. So I learned early on, to expect there to be trials and tribulation along the way. There were going to be some rough patches, and to not jump off the tracks when that happens, So I not only, connected the dots that hard work equals success, as cliche as that is, but I figured out that everyone that I respected that had reached a high level of excellence, their resolve was next level. Okay,
so you say success. You became a successful musician.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you played with some of the heavyweights.
Yeah.
Brief resume. Give me a brief resume.
Wynton Marsalis, Nora Jones, Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra. Yeah, I mean, I left here to become a jazz musician, and that's what I did. I had I had a lot of focus. I was self-motivated. And when you practice 10 hours a day, I mean, you should be able to do that. So to me, it's not, I guess, special. It is unique that someone, from, South Omaha, reaches a point where they can do that. But I teach that it's there for anybody who wants to commit themselves. Again, if you're practicing 10 hours a day to do something and you are watching how others did it. Like I went to Berklee College of Music, not because I thought it was this great, music institution. All of my drumming heroes went there, from J.R. Robinson to Vinnie Colaiuta to Jeff Tane Watts, Marvin Smitty Smith. All of these great drummers somehow went to Berklee College of Music. So I'm like, okay, there must be something in the water there. I'm going to go there. And not that there was, but when I saw someone else do something, I just wanted to minimize the wrong turns. So I'm like, I'm going to go there because I've seen other people do that. Now, what I did learn is it's less about a place like that as a musical institution and more about the relationships that you gain at a place like that has, at that time, had 500 drummers. It probably has double that now. But, 1,200 guitar players, 900 bass players. Yeah. So these ended up being some of the same musicians that I played with in New York, So those relationships were everything, yeah.
So yeah, once you meet people that know you can play, then they say, "Hey, you ought to hire this guy." Next thing you know, you're traveling with people like Wynton Marsalis. Yeah. And you mentioned J.R. Robinson, who is scheduled to be on this podcast in about a month or two. So
and he will be performing at NOMA.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh yeah, that's where it's going to be. I know that he and Mitch Town are going to be doing something. So
yep. I don't have the date on me, but I'll find it.
Yeah, I'm telling you right now. Go to the NOMA website page, which is what?
www.northomahamusic.org.
NorthOmahaMusic.org. Find out when J.R. Robinson and Mitch Town are going to be playing at NOMA, because you'll thank me later. I'm just telling you right now. Okay, so, all right, so you're doing all this. You're traveling. You're playing jazz. You're doing well. Mm-hmm. What made you want to come back to Omaha?
Well, to be honest, I didn't. Life throws curveballs, and the curveball that I was thrown was a year before I moved back here, which is, I guess, around 2005. I went through a custody battle for my son. I was there for a year in Wales, of all places, and I wasn't. I got custody. I got full custody of my son, who was at that time 6, and there was no way I was gonna do the single dad thing in New York. At that time, I was on the road 5-6 months out of the year. So I had to pivot my life. I had to say, okay, I can't do music that way right now. Mm-hmm. And I took a sabbatical from that aspect of music. That's when I got into education. So I moved back here, where all of my support system was, my family, and just jumped into education, started teaching at UNO. I was there for almost 10 years, teaching percussion, teaching drum set. I taught at Omaha Burke for about that same time. I taught at Bellevue East for almost that amount of time, and I started a nonprofit called Dojo Percussion, which was like an all-star competitive percussion unit. It's hard to explain even what it is, but that was a big deal here. So I went after education the same way I did music. It was all the same to me. The bar of excellence travels with whatever somebody chooses to do if they're committed to that. So I had to become the student again for education. I have always been good at, I think, motivation, inspiring someone with something, but all the tools necessary to move different demographics, different age groups, that's a skill set, and you have to be willing to go and really learn what that is.
You mentioned that you were a teacher.
Yeah.
A lot of public schools have cut back on the arts. They've cut back on music, which is, I think, what makes NOMA so important. Yeah. Explain to me why, for a young kid, music and art is so important.
Well, a lot of your school systems are cutting back on the arts because they're looking at straight analytics. They're looking at a spreadsheet and trying to understand what moves a young person or what is important to a young person. A kid can get straight A's in science, math, history. It doesn't make a difference if they aren't curious, if they don't have a sense of exploration, if they're not motivated to maximize their own skills or to find what those skills are. That's where art comes in. it's supposed to be the same reason you have sports in school. Now, would a district, say like OPS, ever remove football from its district? Absolutely not, right?
Well, they did at Benson, but that's another story. As a former Benson buddy, I'm still a little bitter about that. But that's
Benson doesn't have football.
No, they got rid of it because of all the transfers and stuff. Yeah. The good coaches, the coach went to Central. He took a few of the coaches with him. Yeah. The good players went to Central or to West Side or District 66, and yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so last year Benson got rid of its football program, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I have a lot of opinions about OPS. I'm a product of OPS, and I taught in OPS for so long. I have opened our NOMA door to OPS and whatever I have to offer to OPS numerous times because the success I had there in Omaha Burke when I got there, the percussion program was nothing. If there were a ranking, let's say there were 100 percussion sections, it would have been in 90 something. That's how unimportant it was, and we were able to take that program to number one in the state in about 2.5, 3 years. Not because I'm so great, because I had to find out what it was going to take to move these young people. And a lot of the things I had to figure out were intangibles because the infrastructure at the school or at most OPS schools, it's not set up for success. So unless you're resourceful, unless you're a thinker, a problem solver, unless you're willing to give way more than you would ever receive back monetarily, it is very hard to succeed. So that's the first, that's a whole nother podcast on why education, not just the arts, but education is failing because there aren't enough resources given to people that are your type A, driven, critical thinking humans that would be great educators. They go into something else,
But, this is a thing, we'll get off the education thing in a second here, but I always said that I didn't get an education because I wanted to. Right. I got an education because I had no other option. Right. I'm guessing the same is true with you. I'm guessing your mother made sure that you got an education, that you did, just go and persevere through everything so that you could become the man that you are today.
Well, I absolutely... my mother was a driving force in just setting the ethical foundation for what I am. My whole moral code was given to me by my mother. But aside from that, the biggest gift I was ever given was being self-motivated, right? Again, was to be able to connect the dots early on because I grew up in the South Omaha projects. There wasn't anyone there that I could look to do what I ended up doing. Mm-hmm. So I had to be, I had to have a curious mind. I had to look at others and see how they did it because one, I didn't want to be in that same position when I was older, but I, as a young person, wanted to know what is the thing that I'm going to put all my time into. And I was like any other kid. I lacked a lot of focus for most things, whether it was schoolwork, whether it was anything that required discipline. When music came around, drumming specifically was where I learned to channel that energy. And I think every young person has something that can be the catalyst for that. I know drumming work because I've seen it work a million times. So even if a kid wants to do something else, most of the kids I teach at NOMA aren't going to become professional musicians, right? So it can't be about that. It has to be about igniting something in them because they can use all those tools that they've learned from music, the discipline, the accountability, and whatever it is they want to do. It all translates.
As I think a lot of people maybe listen to this podcast that's familiar with Omaha would think that, okay, this venue is at 24th and Lake, mm-hmm. that you're just dealing with African-American kids and kids that might not have some of the same opportunities that kids in the more affluent neighborhoods might have. Right. But that's not necessarily true, is it?
Well, to be honest with you, most of our I guess, constituents, as you will. Most people that come down to see a show are from Omaha proper, right? We are absolutely the most diverse gathering place you're going to find in this city. And I will dare anybody to prove me different. It is the most diverse collection of people you will find anywhere in the city. And the fact that it is in a, I guess, traditionally underserved community, I almost hesitate to say that, because that is even in recent history. Because you go back to before the mid-'60s, and North Omaha was booming. That was the place to be. That was where a lot of great artists came through. But, we're proud of the fact that we've been able to be a uniter for people. We've recently, maybe in the past year, has the community itself said, okay, wow, you know what? All right, we trust that this organization is going to be around, that they have our best interest at heart. All right, let me put some energy. But that took a while, because we're in a community that, why would they just trust someone coming in new? We had to gain that trust, and that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So when the kids come in, when you're dealing with these kids, and again, I'm an old white guy, so what do I know, But when I was growing up, if you listen to the radio, the top 40 radio might have the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, but they'd also have Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra, and Sammy Davis Jr. had a hit record, so you got maybe a country song here or there. So I got, or the Ed Sullivan Show that I would watch would have a little bit of everything. But kids today now, and just the way that the media is, it can be so compartmentalized. Do you expose these kids to music they might not otherwise get, or are they all come in
all the time?
Yeah, or when they come to you, do they only think they want to hear one type of music?
Sure. I ask one of the first questions I ask a group of kids is who they listen to, and I just go through each one of them and I ask them, and I don't, levy any opinions at that time. I just listen, and I think it starts to change when then you start to ask them. Okay, let's say someone says they like Kendrick Lamar, who's great.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, you start to say, okay, well, who do you think influenced Kendrick? I don't know. I don't know is the biggest phrase of young people now, when they have all the information they could ever want right on their cell phones, right? So what I do is I make them research whoever they say they like, whether it's pop, rock, hip hop, country, doesn't matter. That line is going to do a lot of the education for me, because every line eventually gets back to, in this country, black culture. Every line is going to get you back to Louis Armstrong. Every line is going to get you back to gospel, to, I think, culturally what black people went through when they came to this country. I'm just talking about how gospel influenced blues, influenced jazz, then influenced R&B, and then outside of that, you started getting rock, you started getting hip hop, you started getting, country, which spawned out of gospel and blues.
If you go in the history of like the Rolling Stones, the Beatles,
exactly,
and that, they all came. Absolutely. And Muddy Waters. Yeah. That's who they wanted to be like. That's what they were listening to. That's what they loved.
Yeah, and all you're doing is getting young people to look up underneath the hood of their car and figure out how it works. It's like when someone tells me they like someone, I question whether they really like it. I'm like, you don't know if you like it unless you have an informed opinion about that. Same way with music. A lot of, these young musicians that are in music school end up doing other things because they say they love music when they just liked it a lot. You know what I'm saying? And there's a big difference from loving something and liking a lot. And I don't think anyone should try to spend their life doing something they just like.
Boy, you and I are on the same page when it comes to that. I got some more questions for you here, but I want to take a quick break here one more time to once again thank the folks at Havana Garage who sponsor this, so that we're able to bring you a new podcast every week. Every Tuesday, there's a new podcast. Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, a new one gets uploaded. And if you haven't been to the Becca's Talking Facebook page, or if you haven't been to the Becca's Talking YouTube channel, especially the YouTube channel has got archived all the podcasts that we've done. So, yeah, you like this podcast? Check to see what else we got. Much to what you said before about, checking into the artists that these kids like. Same thing here. There may be some podcasts that you may have missed that you can go and look, I'm interested in that topic, because it's a little bit of something different every week. Check it out, and it's always brought to you by the fine folks at Havana Garage in the Old Market. Okay. So these kids come in now, and what motivates them to come in the first place? Is it a thing where they just do they have a love of music to begin with? Or they just not know what they're doing? Their parents say, "Go and learn something." Or what's the motivation for these kids?
On the education side of things, it's usually word of mouth, because we've just started to sort of promote and advertise our general curriculum, because it's been so much. We spent so much time building to the point where we are now, where we have a facility that supports sort of the education that we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it. But people hear, or they see another kid, they see their experience, and then they want to get their kids in that. Now, again, we're never going to have a fiscal barrier. So there's a lot of the kids that come to NOMA that, quite frankly, can't afford to go to other youth music education facilities. So my sole motivation for NOMA was making something that would typically be out of reach in reach. Because I was one of those kids, so I get that. And I there will never be a fiscal barrier as long as I am there. Obviously, we have to keep the lights on. We have to run a business, but that's where that resourcefulness comes in. As long as there's a philanthropic agenda, we're all nonprofits, then if you're actively engaged in that, you should be able to support your education without putting a lot of the heavy lifting on the kids you're trying to support.
And you've got some very heavy hitters on your board of directors and that are involved with NOMA as well, to make sure that this thing does have some legs and is able to thrive. But you made a good point. I was lucky in that. I guess I told you before we started recording that I'm a drummer that can keep a 4/4 beat. Bachman Turner Overdrive. I can play a Bachman Turner Overdrive song, Right. But I also played trumpet as a kid. I was third chair trumpet at Benson only because there was no fourth chair. I was awful at it. I was awful at trumpet, and I wasn't that much better at drums.
Right.
But I loved it. And it taught me so much more than just how to beat a drum or toot a horn. Right. It taught me so much more about enjoying all the different arts. And that, I think, is so important. I've had great times at country shows. I've had great times at jazz clubs. I've had great times at rock concerts. I've had great times, and people ask me, what's your favorite song or what's your favorite? I don't have a favorite, because I enjoy it all. Right. And there's so much out there, and I think that if you can instill that in the kids who, quite honestly, may not, be exposed to a lot of this other stuff. Yeah. I think that's very important. Just to say for the curious mind to be able to expand into other things if music is not going to be where they're going to go.
It's everything. Again, to be honest with you, in 2025, we are failing our young people in terms of education. We're trying to teach these young people and move and inspire and motivate them with tactics that were used for us. So the basic process of education, translating information to another person, is antiquated, right? So kids don't need us for information anymore. if someone was so driven, they could get everything they wanted to from YouTube if they were so driven. So it's not about the information. That's their form. And they will vet what you tell them on the spot. I've seen it happen. So it's not about the information. It's about, so it's not the what, it's the why.
But you mentioned YouTube. Well, the algorithms are such that if they're listening to, Kendrick Lamar, all right, they're listening to that, well, then it's going to recommend, hey, you'll like this person. But they don't go and say, oh, you like Kendrick Lamar? Have you thought about listening to Motley Crue? Have you thought about listening to Dolly Parton? Have you thought about listening to Muddy Waters? They don't give you that,
Some of the algorithms, say in like Apple Music or Spotify, they do have stuff like that, but on a larger scale, if you are going to have a curriculum, which you're going to have to follow some process when you're trying to teach a mass group of kids in any school district, just the way that we teach, you don't have any inspiration rolled into that. We always knew why we were doing something. We were taught you could relate it to something most of the time. Now, because there's so much information out there, and because the teachers that come out and go into education, a lot of times they weren't inspired. So how are they going to then have the tools to inspire someone? You have, professors at music institutions, at universities that have gone straight through and got their doctorate, but have never had to make a living playing music. Well, if you have a music program at a university that you can go and get a degree in performance, and you're teaching someone how to go and do that, how effective are you going to be at doing that if you haven't done it yourself? Because kids are thinking that. Kids want to know, okay, why should I do this? Again, how effective are you going to be at that if you haven't done that? Now, I'm just talking music, but you have the same thing in all areas. You have people that are teaching history that have never been anywhere.
Right.
It's like, come on. How inspiring is that going to be? I remember the stuff that inspired me was always someone that could give me context. So I remember a history teacher that was teaching us about, let's say he was teaching us about German history. But then he also told us about trips that he and his wife or family took to Germany and how he tasted this food. And it made more sense. You could almost create a picture for context. If you're not creating context, if you're not inspiring with today's student, you're not educating them at all. You're not leaving anything that they're going to rub on themselves that they can use for something. And that's a problem. We're in a crisis. Not many people want to look at it like that. And a lot of times I almost seem like the bearer of bad news, but it's only because I've seen enough generations of young people with now teaching for the past, 20 plus years. I know it comes and goes very quick when you have a kid and that window's open for them to receive information to now they're thrust into the world as an adult themselves. And they have to reach into that bag of experience and pick out stuff to be successful. We aren't filling their bags with stuff they can use in 2025 because they're not trying to use the tools from, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, it's fascinating. If people want to know, you mentioned you are a nonprofit. Yeah. If people want to help out, if people want to support what you're doing here, they can. Well, first of all, they want to support what you're doing. Go to one of the shows.
Absolutely.
Go to one of the shows at NOMA. I mean, you can also you have a little bar there, right? So you can have a cocktail and enjoy some music.
Yeah.
Monday nights are jam nights. You get some great. There's so much talent in this town that people don't appreciate. I think sometimes some great musicians play on Monday night there at NOMA, but then again, the other shows that you might want to go see, or just make a donation or just stop by and check it out because it really is. It really is doing some good work for not just for North Omaha, but for Omaha. To try to teach these kids and to try to motivate them, inspire them, and educate them, if not just in music, but in what else propels them, and I think it's a very worthy goal, and I definitely appreciate you being here.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
Yeah, once again, the website is
www.northomahamusic.org.
NorthOmahaMusic.org. Thank you all for joining us. As I said, like the YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and tell your friends to join us for a different podcast every week here on Becca's Talking. Brought to you by Omaha Garage. Till next time, take care, and bye, y'all.